Gladys Berejiklian, the goody two-shoes premier, caught up in a scandal like this? It's incredible.
Look, I've known Gladys for a long, long time, and I watched yesterday from a sort of personal point of view and an ethical, political, professional point of view. And sort of the first thing that jumped out at me was that isn't she a strong woman? It just oozed strength. And then I thought, well, come on, ICAC person, what's the point? Why are we doing this? He sort of didn't get there, I don't think, on a professional level. On a personal level, I thought it was really sad, that sort of midlife relationship, and you think, you know, once this other bloke leaves Parliament, we're going to get together and we'll have a happy life together. And now she's doubting in public that this fellow had feelings for her at all. And I thought, crikey, to do that in front of millions of people was really sad. But, you know, unless this fellow from Wagga Wagga comes out tomorrow with something that we all don't know, I can't see the Premier's done anything wrong.
Bruce Hawker, I think you're of a different view. You think the Premier's gone either, well, in the near term or at some point. What's your take on it after the events of today?
Well, I think there are two options really for the Liberal Party, remembering that they are the ones who have made a big noise about corruption in the Labor Party and taken the moral high ground, quite rightly on occasions, I might say. Now they're confronted with a very real scandal that's afflicting their Premier, who does, up until recently anyway, have a good reputation. And so do they move to remove her now and draw a line under this unhappiness, or do they stick with her and hope that they can, just see out the rough weather, which is going to be very difficult for them, because every time they start talking about corruption and the like, the name Darryl Maguire is going to be thrown up in the Parliament and elsewhere, and she will never have an answer for why she continued talking to this fellow when he was raising questions and issues with her on behalf of a property developer in Western Sydney. Now, that is the problem she's got. She could have just said, look, if you raise this with me once more, I'm referring this to ICAC. And as Andrew Clennell said earlier today on your program, that would have been the end of the show. No one would have come anywhere near her again. But she didn't, and now she's paying a price for it. And she doesn't look very good compared to Jodi McKay, who actually did refer two of her colleagues to ICAC in 2011 when they engaged in corrupt activities against her. McKay has got the moral high ground here. It's not a good situation for the Liberal Party or for Gladys Berejiklian personally.
No, it's a terrible situation. Massive problems for her. And if you go back 48 hours, if I said to you, who's been the most competent Premier, Graham, and the most, clearly the best Premier in terms of balancing the medical and the economic crisis, it's her, Gladys Berejiklian, with the Chief Medical Officer, Chand. But then fast forward a day or two and she's under immense pressure right now. And, you know, I think a huge question as to whether she'll survive even to the next election.
Well, you know, there is no smoking gun. There may be a bit of grass burning, but there's nothing there that's hangable. And, you know, I thought perhaps the Telegraph would come out this morning with Gladys going, but not gone. I thought for 24 hours you weren't quite sure. But she's come out today again, she's strong, the team's behind her, and nobody's come up with a reason as to what she has actually done wrong. And I'm starting to get a bit sick of these ICAC people and royal commissions and all that. You know, Nick Greiner, he went because he'd offered a colleague a trip, a posting overseas. Well, that happens all the time. Barry O'Farrell went because of a bottle of wine. You know, the Premier, Gladys, would go because, why? Because she trusted some poor bloke that she was having a relationship with. And And we've got royal commissioners now. You start writing headlines like, I forget which one it was, but neglect all over the front page. Well, and that was an interim report. What do we do with the final report? You know, neglect the sequel? It's most unprofessional and annoying.
Bruce Hawker, the point that Graham made there about the relationship, it's something that the Premier herself has pointed to repeatedly the last 24 hours, is that she made a mistake in her personal life. She is getting a lot of sympathy in that position. How do you see that in relation to the substantive questions that we're discussing here versus the, you know, the political prism, which we all know exists as well? And that is, one, she comes into this in a strong position because of COVID, and two, there's a bit of sympathy there. You'd agree with that?
Look, she would have an element of sympathy because she's been a competent manager of New South Wales. But you have to separate the question of her relationship with Maguire in the romantic sense from what he was actually doing on the side. And that is, as a member of Parliament, engaging in paid lobbying work for people, including a developer in Western Sydney, on whose behalf he contacted the Premier and discussed the issue with her. That's one of the very real issues that are at play here. Now, as Jodi McKay pointed out today in Parliament, her duty when confronted with corrupt or potentially corrupt activities is to report it to ICAC, and she failed to do that. She failed in her duties as a minister and as a Premier to do that. That's got nothing to do with her romantic relationship with this fellow. If there had been no relationship between him and her of that nature, and he'd still gone to her as a member of Parliament being paid by a developer to lobby on her behalf, then he would still have been committing a corrupt action, and she would be as well by not reporting it to ICAC. That's where this all rests. And you can't trivialise these things by downplaying the importance of ICAC or royal commissions. They are very important bodies to look into this sort of activity in governments.
Graham, just quickly.
It comes back to this company, EWU or EMU or whatever it is. And the Premier said, and I understood this, you know, you get a million things coming at you as Premier or Prime Minister or Minister. And this character says, you know, I'm trying to sort out this thing here called EWU. And the Premier thinks, oh, yeah, well, that must be, you know, something that's good for his electorate, and moves on. You don't sit there and dwell on all these things that come at you as Premier. And maybe that was a mistake, but it's not hangable.
Yeah, well, there were a few things outside of the electorate as well, which is the problem. Graham and Bruce, we're out of time.
Yes.